In this video, we're going to talk about how to find the area of a trapezoid and where that area formula comes from. Starting with where that area formula comes from. A trapezoid is the only quadrilateral we study in 6th grade that does not have two sets of parallel lines. It has one set, these lines right here. The other two lines, called the legs, will intersect. They're not parallel. So these green lines here, the parallel lines, are called your bases. But in a trapezoid, they are not the same length. So we call them base 1 and base 2. The intersecting lines, the non-parallel lines, are called the legs. And they're great if you need to find the perimeter of a trapezoid, but they do not meet the bases in 90-degree angles, so they cannot be used as our height. Our height has to make a right angle with both bases and is oftentimes something that you're going to have to either draw in if you have grid paper to count, or it will already be drawn in for you. We do not have a formula yet that we've learned for the area of a trapezoid. However, if you take two congruent trapezoids, two equal trapezoids, and you flip one of them over like this, all of a sudden, when you combine them, you can make a shape that we do know the area formula for. This shape here is a parallelogram. We know that a parallelogram area formula is area equals base times height. Now, to make it the area of the parallelogram that's made up of these two trapezoids, we're going to use a few different measurements. Our height will be the same no matter where you draw it in your two trapezoids. However, this section was what we called base 1, and this longer section we had originally called base 2. So in order to find the entire base of your trapezoid, you have to add them together. So when we rewrite our formula like that, the area of this parallelogram that's made up of these two trapezoids is base 1 plus base 2, notice how it's in parentheses, times the height. It's in parentheses because what you want to do is you want to add them before you multiply, and when you have them in parentheses, you know that you have to follow order of operations, so we're adding those up before we multiply it times the height. Last step, I only want to know about the trapezoid. I didn't really want to know about two trapezoids put together. So I'm going to ultimately divide that formula by 2 because I'm trying to break it in half to show that I only want this trapezoid. You can write it like this, or the way you'll see it on the star chart is area equals half of the base 1 plus the base 2 times the height. This will be something that you will be expected to explain if I ask you to write me why the area formula for trapezoid came to be. You should be able to articulate, oh, it's because two trapezoids together make a parallelogram, and the parallelogram adds the two bases to create your overall base, and then you're dividing it in 2 because you don't actually want both of the trapezoids. You'll need to be able to articulate that. You'll also need to be able to solve when I give you a trapezoid to find the area. So here is, this one's called a right trapezoid. Not all trapezoids look like this. This is called an isosceles trapezoid because both of the legs are equal in length. This is called a right trapezoid because one of the legs creates a right angle. Both of them are trapezoids. Both could be used. You could see them in problems. The isosceles trapezoid tends to be what I personally think of when I think of a trapezoid, but there are lots of different ways you could draw them. So let's say that you have a height of 4 inches, a base 1 of 12 inches, and a base 2 of 20 inches. What's the area? Always, always, always your first step is to write out your area formula. Area equals 1/2 of base 1 plus base 2 times the height. Then next step is to plug in information you already know. Still don't know the area. 1/2 of, I know that one of the bases is 12. I know that the other base is 20. It does not matter which one you decide is base 1. Since you're adding them both together anyway, you could say 12 plus 20 or 20 plus 12. It's fine. My height is 4 inches. Now I'm going to follow order of operations. Starting inside my parentheses, area equals 1/2 of 22 times 4. Notice how I'm still writing out every single step right here in order. This is the best way for your teacher to be able to check your work. It's also the best way for you to be able to check your work. And if you're following it step by step, you're less likely to make a mistake. Now, 1/2 of 22 is 11 times 4. My area equals 44. My units were inches. Area is always talking about the number of squares that could fit inside a shape. So your inches are squared or to the power of 2. And there's your final answer. This is the other type of trapezoid problem you might see, where I give you the area and the bases, but you're missing the height. Still the first step. Write your area formula. This is a trapezoid, so I'm going to reference my star chart. Make sure that I write it down properly, because the worst thing is when you just accidentally write down the wrong formula. All your math is right, but you're solving for the wrong shape. So make sure that you're double checking your star chart so that it's actually the correct formula for the shape that you're working with. This is the area formula for a trapezoid. Step 2, plug in the information that you are given in the problem. It tells me that the area is 52 feet, so instead of writing area, or A again, I'm going to write 52. Keep my 1/2. It tells me my two bases. Add them up. It does not tell me my height, so I leave the h there just until I can figure it out. Step 3, keep solving. Simplify what you can. 5 and 2500ths plus 7 and 7500ths is 13. Okay. 1/2 of 13 is 6 1/2. 6 1/2 and h are being multiplied together. To undo that, the inverse operation of multiplication is division. Divide both sides by 6 1/2. On this side, that leaves me with just one h. And on the other side, on the left-hand side, I'm not quite sure, so I'm going to go take it off to the side and do some division. Well, I don't want a decimal in my divisor, so I'm going to move that decimal place 1 over to make it 65. What I do to one part of my division problem, my divisor, I have to do to my dividend. Find the decimal point in 52. It's hidden at the end. Move it one space over, because you're technically multiplying both these numbers times 10. Like over here, what we're doing actually is we're just saying times 10 times 10. That becomes 520. That becomes 65. So that way there are no decimals in my divisor, in my denominator here, and I can continue in with my division problem. So now I have 520 divided by 65. Okay, let's see. 65 goes into 5 0 times. Goes into 52 0 times. Goes into 520, I don't know, I'm going to have to do it off to the side. 65 times 1 is 1. 65 times 2 is 130. 65 times 3 is going to be 195. 65 times 4 is going to be 260. 65 times 5 is going to be 325. Plus another 65 is going to be 6, 7, 8, 9, 390. Plus another 65 is going to be 455. Plus another 65 is going to be 11, 12, 400, 520. Oh, hey, right there. Okay, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, 65, if you have 8 groups of it, equals 520. That leaves you with a remainder of 0. So my unknown variable here, my height, is actually going to be 8, keep the units, feet. I do not say 8 feet squared because area is the only thing that gets squared. Height is just a one-dimensional measurement. It's just this line right here. It's not calculating how many squares are inside that line. It's just trying to measure how tall that line is. So it's just 8 feet. That was a lot of work, but I used my area formula, I stuck with it, and that's how I feel confident that I got my correct answer. I could also go plug it back in and check. Double checking. Area. Oh, wait, no, I know my area. 52 equals 1/2 times 5 and 25/100 plus 7 and 75/100 times, I'm thinking it's 8, but I'm double checking my answer. All right, 52 equals half of, these add together to make 13 times 8. Here's what I like about this formula is this is multiplication here, this is multiplication here. So it doesn't actually matter if I do half of 13, then multiply it by 8, or if I do half of 8, then multiply it by 13. I'm going to choose to do it that way because that gives me half of 8 is 4, and I can do 4 times 13 instead of doing half of 13, which is 6 and 5/10 times 8, just because I try and avoid the decimal multiplication when I can. Does 52 equal 4 times 13? Well, I don't know that one off the top of my head. Got to take it over to the side. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Yes, 52 equals 52. We got it right. So we can be comfortable with our answer that the height is 8 feet.